All right.
This is the last time I catch teleportation red eye.
Ooh.
Ugh.
Slightly better than teleportation pink eye.
Is it though?
Do you know how do you get the pink eye?
That's got to be a 4th level spell. Welcome to Caffeine&Cantrips, the show where we talk about D&D.
Or else.
Incoming dirty secret. Well, I guess it's not that dirty. And it's not really a secret because you clicked the thumbnail. But I'm going anyway. Travel sucks. And you know it.
Oh, yeah.
We understand. No one likes the in-between.
No.
Spoiler, mild take, and a big duh. No one likes travel.
No.
Best part of vacation, the beach. Best part of finishing work, getting home. F that rush hour.
Mm-hmm.
Even our dreams skip the in-between. So today, we're going to talk about going there, coming back, and having a good story to tell when you return. Like that one time we went to Chinese jail.
And welcome back, everyone, again, to Caffeine&Cantrips. Thanks for joining us. As you may have guessed, we're talking about how to make travel not sucky in D&D.
I always prefer my D&D with a little sake, but
sake.
Yeah, sucky.
Yes, maybe a little bit of sake, maybe a little bit of sake, but not the good kind.
Yeah. Shout out to you, samurai subclasses.
All right. Well, let's not delay it any longer. Why don't you start us off there, Byron?
Well, glad to. So yeah, let's talk about the thing that sucks, and let's really kind of dig in to what it is. So,
Okay.
What is travel in D&D? This is like probably one of the most searched items out there, where a lot of people need help because they don't know what's going on with it or what it is.
Well, it's so unsatisfying, typically, right?
It generally feels that way.
Yeah.
Or it feels like you can't accomplish a win with everybody around the table.
Mm-hmm. Or it's like a waste of time. Yeah.
But I think
what
this is, what it is, I think that this is the most important thing that we ignore.
Oh, it's a great opportunity to improve.
Yeah.
Okay.
So why do we ignore it?
Do we? Oh, yeah.
Like we said, it's hard to define what it is off the cuff. I mean, travel could just be like here to there, done, right?
Yep.
It could be, like our favorite Frodo Baggins taking
Share the load.
big old load sharing all across Mordor.
Yep.
What is that? And are they the same? I mean, travel is travel, I guess. It defines as the same. It's going from one place to the other.
The words are the same, but it feels different.
The journey
it feels
is the one
different.
that matters, right?
It feels different.
So why do we ignore it? And I think because it's a little undefined, it's a little everywhere, it's a little nowhere, it's really easy to kind of quote unquote mess it up. And it's very difficult to master or to make it look graceful or effortless or just kind of generally fun for everybody.
Right, like a good movie, you're like, oh, that's the end?
Yeah.
It didn't feel like 2 hours or whatever, right?
Movies cheat, and I'm sure we'll talk about that soon.
They really do.
I mean, as far as movies, there are entire teams of attention-grabbing masters in visual media.
Yes.
Whether that is TV, whether that is movies, whether that's streaming service, whatever you want to call it, there are people dedicated to keeping you hooked, keeping your attention going. Yes. But what is it that they're doing, right?
Okay.
And why it's hard, like I said, you've got teams of masters. It's really because when we look at TTRPGs, D&D, Pathfinder,
right,
everybody else,
Starfinder,
what we're looking at is really kind of one pillar being too lonely. It's unsatisfying generally.
Itself, that one pillar.
2 pillars is enough. 2 pillars is company. 2's company, right?
3 pillars.
But 3 is a crowd, right? So to get all of that rolled in together.
It's the best kind of crowd.
And to keep it non-monotonous.
Yep.
Right? Worrying about the pacing, worrying about narrative stagnation because you've spent too much time kind of smelling the flowers, right? Random encounters, resource management, because a lot of times we got to start tracking our rations, start tracking our weight when we start going into that, right? Time management. How much time are we spending actually doing this?
Like in real lifetime.
In real lifetime. Yeah. And like just game sessions, just chewed up.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway. And then, of course, all of that leads us back to a lack of engagement.
Yes,
right?
That's the problem.
Because you start pulling that thread and then you got no shirt. Yeah, like you. So what are we to do about all of these things that don't want to come together? And it's like, as generally as the DM who's leading this expedition, right? It's like herding cats with all of these ideas that are happening, right?
Yeah.
So what are we actually missing out on? When we're traveling, right? So we're missing out on the chance to do some proper world building and some exploration of that world, right? And we can get into kind of a theater of the show, don't tell. This is what my world looks like. These are the boreal forests that supply the kingdom. This is the crystal waters that we fish from to, supply the blah, blah, blah. Right. There is a chance for you to get out there and show these things. Yep. Show what your world is like. Show that your world is vicious, full of bandits, full of cutthroats.
Yes.
Or maybe it's nicely patrolled and everything's a yellow brick road and the munchkins just sing you along.
Even that world is brutal. Flying evil monkeys that would steal your children and whatnot.
I beg to differ. The monkeys weren't evil. They just were forced to compel to the commands of the crown.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Shout out to all my flying monkeys. But when we're getting out there and we're doing that show, we're able to then do cultural exposure. Why is this place different from that place? What is the meaning of this place? What is the feeling of this place, right? In that, switch up the environment. Do a really dynamic shift from rainforest to desert, from mountain to beach. Each one has its own kind of charm about itself.
Right. Okay.
And so we have the chance to get out there and show these things. Right. We get to show an epic journey feeling by having these environments, these majestic, like I said, mountains, cliffs, bluffs, right? Yeah.
Yes.
That emphasis gets me every time. Right. We can look at, the power of the northern shores. And the waves that churn up there. And that's why you can't fish or trade on these waters.
Just surf.
North Shore, awesome.
Yeah.
But these sorts of things are the world building and exploration that we generally miss out on when we just go fast travel. Right?
Right.
From one place to the next.
Because that is a thing that people do too.
That is a thing that people do. I was super guilty of it back in the WoW days of just like, I don't care where we're going. I'm just going to follow. Follow that one person and then hope you don't get stuck on a rock somewhere.
I'm sorry. I always run in weird paths. I mess up the people who are following me.
Why are you zigzagging? Anyway.
Why did it jump over everything?
Yeah. No, it happens that way. But the doing that, the driving from one location to the other.
Yes.
You get stuck on the road and you kind of tunnel vision in and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
We can't. Well, with self-driving cars or driving assisted cars, now we have the freedom to kind of look around a little bit more when it's safe to do so. But, there's these things that we're missing when we just focus on the core aspect of travel.
Okay.
Right?
Of moving from one place to another place.
It's just like exposition for exposition's sake. It's kind of useless.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so this is yet another way that we lead back into that lack of engagement and all that kind of stuff, right? But what else are we missing out on? I think there's plot diversification that you can add in here.
Okay.
Foreshadowing, plot hooks.
Oh, okay.
Right? More things. Once again, we're showing what's going on. Maybe the warlord that's taking over villages in the east.
Yeah.
Right? As we travel further west, the people are spreading fear. They've heard that they're coming. Right? If you go east, you see the devastation that's been wrought, you find that the rumors are true.
Mm-hmm.
If you find that the rumors aren't true, what a twist. So these sorts of things, I think, work great, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can lead in your BBGs or whatever's coming, whatever you want to have as kind of the next arc, the next story. Maybe it intertwines with a player's story.
Yeah.
And so they can start their own rumors that you as the DM can kind of bounce on. We're not on that topic. But
like Mean Girls.
The musical?
The movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then on top of it all, things that actually bring us back into travel is we can find those challenges.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So now a challenge can be a skill check. Sure. That's a definition of challenge, whether like a DC, and
I don't know if you can define it as a challenge really, but
it's a skill
just
challenge
something to do
or mentioned as such.
Yeah.
But it's not really, right? It doesn't entertain people unless your table just wants to do that.
It doesn't challenge the players. At least.
Yes.
Right.
On its face value, it does not give you the opportunity really to kind of dig in and have,
because it's not a challenge to roll a dice.
It
really, and then whatever happens. It's you can't try harder to roll the dice better. Well, maybe you can. Let me know how.
You don't remember those life simulations. But yeah, anyway, regardless, when you get out there, there's also the possibility to incorporate side quests, right? Instead of ignoring them, instead of just going there, right? That magical item that you want and that random stone or shale chip that you need to go collect for it, right? That can be out there. It is out there by definition.
Yes.
Right? And gives you a reason to go from A to B or to expand your kind of area of influence. Resource management in of itself can actually be kind of interesting if you get to a high enough level, but not necessarily the overburden of weight and like ammo tracking and whatnot. You can say like, are the people safe? Right. Are the supply lines good? Are the logistics if we're supporting an army? That kind of resource management instead of just mathing out how many
rations do I need?
3 lamb wool skins.
Right.
Yeah. Does that tip it over? Can our horse carry that weight? Because that gets really difficult. It does actually get really difficult. And it's not fun necessarily.
Right. Yep.
Necessarily. Right.
Yes.
I mean, shout out spreadsheet bros. But beyond that, if it's too cumbersome and it gets in the way of the fun, yes. But resource management can be an interesting and fun thing to look at as a challenge.
Okay.
Right. Not as necessarily as all the time, unless that's your table. A-okay if it is. Beyond that.
I don't know about that, but okay.
You don't know about that.
We'll see.
Okay.
I'm looking at that person right there.
Sure. Now, it can also do a lot with character development. I'm going to talk more about that later.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's a lot that we can actually do with characters while traveling instead of just them like covering miles and miles of road. But I'll talk about that later. What I really want to kind of leave out there is that I think that generally travel is an underdeveloped skill, especially for most DMs.
Okay.
And if you focused on your travel and it's graceful and smooth, amazing, awesome. Or if you love to fast travel and you and the table have decided that, awesome. For me, I don't think it's about ignorance. I think it's just so many layers, trying to keep everything together, trying to keep it cohesive, trying to execute that gracefully and well in front of, let's face it, PCs. It becomes...
that's talking about dirty secrets. PCs.
Mild take of the year.
So dirty.
PCs are crazy. It is difficult to execute in all of these factions and fronts simultaneously. So when we get to this, I think it's important that we understand that it is a skill to develop. Managing all of these things is difficult and it improves over time the more you do it, right? So when we look at skills development and not perfection, right? We're not expecting ourselves to be a Mercer, a Mulligan, an Iyengar, a Buller, right? All of those quote unquote effects on the community,
Mhm.
we shouldn't necessarily expect ourselves to be at that level. Right? It's a team of people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Any of those kind of live cast things.
Even
that you've
those
seen,
guys, yeah.
right? They've got writers, they've got assistants, they've got lore keepers, they've got all of these things that we home DMs or semi-pro DMs or whatever it is
us.
that you are. Most of the time, it's just you doing it. And so it's a lot. So understand that your achievements and your accomplishments become kind of polish for its own reward.
Oh, okay.
Right? What you do, you should realize that you're good at doing it, or you're average at doing it, or you're bad at doing it, and work to get better. And all of that work, much like kind of going to the gym, is worth it. Is definitely worth it. So accept your best for the day. Move on to tomorrow. Do a little bit better. Do a little bit better in your next session. Try new things. But travel itself is going to be a very kind of rainbowed effect. And you got to pick one part of it at a time to work on.
To get better at.
Right?
Okay.
And so I would ask you, and if you jump in the comments, what is your strongest and or weakest skill that you bring when you're trying to create travel in your game? Right? Let's recognize what's out there, and then Sean and I can come out and maybe give some tips or pointers, or whatever. Or maybe we've got some more pointers for later on.
Yeah.
But asking yourself, what do you bring to the table to fight lack of engagement?
Right.
Right? To fight that narrative disillusion, right? To fight that cohesion that's always going to kind of go in 100 different directions.
It's, yes. Yeah. No, it's totally true. It's travel is such a weird thing, because I think, I'm talking about this in a bit, but travel is not what we think it is.
Okay.
Right? Like we talked about, you just talked about like, cultural exposure, chance to do this, chance to do like RP, plot diversification. That's great. Right? But what is better is hitting that like and subscribe button.
Don't worry about the travel between your finger and clicking that button. Just do it. Arrive at your destination.
Yes. Leave a comment and be prepared for the best point ever about travel. Because we talk about that kind of stuff. And
speaking of breaking news, let's go.
Right. And you talk about like travel. You can do like I said, the plot stuff, the exploration stuff, of seeing this and that, resource management. And while I agree with that, I think there's a fundamental paradigm shift that we need to do when we're thinking about travel in D&D and TTRPGs. Because travel isn't actually a thing. That's why it's so weird. And that's why we don't tend to do a great job at it. Right? Because it's not actually a thing. Right? Because if you're looking for specific things to make traveling more engaging, right? Skip forward to the next points. I'm going to talk about and really dig into sort of the idea of what is D&D travel, and why it's not actually a thing. Okay. Because there are actually, when you think about it, there's actually multiple levels of what we think of as traveling within D&D.
So this is talking
TTRPGs. In general, we're going big conceptual stuff right now. Okay. I think the first one that I'm going to talk about 3, but there's as many levels as you want to break it down in. Okay. The first one is overland travel, right? City to city, or like from a city to another location, right? Like a dungeon or something like that, right? The big overland stuff, right? And this is what we usually think of when we think of traveling in D&D, right? Like with the rations and like making camp and random encounters and stuff like that.
Setting up watches, making sure you get enough water.
Yeah. We have a pretty solid understanding of what that sort of looks like.
For the win.
But when you think about it, there's also intra-location travel. So that's like within a city or a location, right? Or you can say like from one building to another. I woke up at the Adventurers Guild or at the inn. I want to go to the general store to buy stuff. That's also traveling at a smaller scale.
Oh, I mean, you could
Right.
say two halves of a dinner table where there's two PC conversations going on.
Absolutely.
You travel from one side of the table to
Right.
the other.
That's my next sort of levels that I
Oh.
want to talk about is intra-room travel, right? And that's within a discrete quote unquote room
Mm-hmm.
within like a building or something or
Okay.
a dungeon, right? So you can move from one place, like from the table to the bar,
Mm-hmm.
right, or to the room in the inn, right? That's travel as well, and all the entire spectrum in between all those three, right?
Right.
It's all actually travel.
Big old bunny ears. on
Bunny
there.
ears, because it's not actually a thing. Because when you think about it,
Mhm.
again, like I said, there's lots of levels. I'm gonna leave it at those three, just so you get the idea of what I mean when it comes to travel. Is not just overland stuff, right?
Okay, so city to destination,
mhm,
in city to in city,
yes,
and then like within room
Within
to
a
within
room.
room.
yeah. There's more other ones probably, like
Yeah.
I don't know, like whatever, like traveling from. I'm gonna travel from the table, bread to my mouth. But I think those three levels I talk about are sort of the ones that are sort of that have value to think about.
Okay.
But the difference between those levels, though, is how we handle it.
Right.
Right? It's all travel, but how do we handle it, right? Because in concept, they're the same thing. From the perspective of people sitting at the table and playing the game, that's us, right? And the DMs and the PCs, right? What we think of traveling is just a sequence of static stages that contain scenes. You think about it, we don't role play necessarily walking from the tavern to the general store. We can, but if there's no RP scene that we don't want, we skip it,
I
Right.
suppose.
right? Or we don't RP like you say, oh, do you RP walking from the table to the bar? No, you say I go to the bar, and the next scene is, oh, you're at the bar. What do you say to the bartender?
There's plenty of time where you kind of have a quote unquote, I will put it in quotations,
Yeah.
a stationary conversation that a PC will look across at the DM like 5-10 minutes into the conversation and be like, we were walking this whole time.
Right. But that's a scene within the
Yes.
walking. Like, because it takes, I don't know, like 20 minutes to walk to the thing. You're not going to necessarily RP for like things you do. What do I do? I take 2 steps forward and then I say this. And then, I look over here. Like, it gets really tedious after a while.
Sure could.
Because traveling is tedious. That it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But because
It's very Goldilocks. It's either too fast or too slow.
because the traveling itself is not interesting.
Mhm.
Right. It's not actually a thing that we care about.
Right.
Right. Like the moving from one location to another at all 3 levels
Mhm.
is the same. We don't care about it, right? Like the intra-location stuff, we have scenes from one building and another building, right? Into room, it's different locations in a room. Overland travel, we have the scenes where we make camp,
Mhm.
right? We have where maybe stuff happens during
Though
the
not
day.
really, right? You're like, oh, is this a good place to camp? Okay, we make camp. And there's some more conversation, but there's no like, I roll out my bedroll and then I stake the points.
'Cause no one
to
cares about
lay the
that.
tarp across the
Right? Because we do that every night, right? What we care about is the scene. Is there an RP scene?
Yeah.
Right? Oh, at night there's watch. What we care about is there a random encounter that I need to fight or something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We don't care about the actual time where I'm on watch. We skip to the part where something happens.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And again, it's a series, like overland travel is basically a series of intra-room scenes put together like a montage.
Right.
Right? We skip the actual moving between scenes.
Yeah.
Right? Right? And the RP and the combat and whatever else, like the exploration or all that kind of stuff that you talked about in your point,
Mm-hmm.
happen within those scenes.
Yes.
Right? There's gameplay level stuff, of course, like your skill challenges, skill checks, and stuff like that. And they fit well for the actual travel portion of it.
So many quotations.
I know.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, because nothing's happening. It's just a roll.
No.
Let's move on.
Yes,
Right?
because
Like-
you're narrated to a point and then there's an external stimulus.
Mm-hmm.
You deal with that and then you're narrated to the next point.
Right.
Yes.
And the only reason that we may care about those challenges is that they affect the next scenes coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, oh, something happened. I lost HP because I fell off a rock or something like that. And now the next scene, which is the combat scene.
Mom said, don't climb no rocks.
Right. I'm starting 5 HP back.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But if it doesn't affect anything, no one gives a crap about those skill checks. Right? Skill checks for the sake of skill checks while you're traveling is not fun.
Right. I mean, I suppose, though, you built your ranger to be that explorer, woodsman kind of thing, and now you get to show off why you built your character the way that you built it.
But without a scene that's affected by that, that makes that matter, there's no point in doing it. Right? The actual travel itself has no meaning. It's the scenes itself that lend meaning to the movement between the scenes, right? It's a lot like scenes in a play. Right? Act 1, scene 2, Act 1, scene 3, right?
Oh, my favorite.
And a good play contains only scenes that are essential to the story and the specific experience of that play.
Right.
There is nothing else. In a good play, there's no extraneous scenes that don't hold meaning, right? It's always a balance between how much time we're spending or expending on this scene and the value that we get back from it. And I argue that D&D is the same. Okay, so when we think about traveling, again, think about it as there shouldn't be any non-essential scenes within your travel montage, right? Or any elements that you don't need, because all that does is dilute your role-playing or gaming experience as a player, an experiencer of that campaign.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Right? To me, it does.
And that results in less fun, again, less engaging, and more boring. Right? So that's what I wanted to really establish before we moved on, I think, is that, like I said, travel is not a thing. It's the scenes put together within the travel experience that we care about, that make things fun or not fun.
Interesting. I've recently attempted to develop the skill in what I call scening a scene.
Scening a scene.
Scening a scene. Yeah. To turn a rough concept into words. Essentially, allowing the players to accept certain facts, to not have to actually necessarily do them, or to transfer themselves from one point to the other while talking for 5 minutes, because it's a 5-minute walk from the inn to the stables, whatever it is, and just closing narrative brackets around it to just say, okay, you guys had that conversation. You did want to share that with the rest of the group? Great. You share that with the rest of the group as you guys arrive at the stables, right? Your horses are ready to go. So instead of necessarily or unnecessarily rehashing or kind of repeating and kind of reiterating things that have happened in the story, to actually just, as the DM, put like a bracket on it and just say, they told you that. You were sitting there. You should have been paying attention. Did you have any questions? We're moving on.
Well, and that's the job, I would argue, of the DM, is to set the scenes. Here's the start of the scene. Here's what's in the scene. PCs, you act out the scene, improv way. And then the DM's like, I'm like, scene end, next scene. Right? And the next scene is the stables.
Yeah, the hardest part about it is giving enough room for the players to actually have the space that they want to accomplish the things that they want.
You have to feel it out, right?
And simultaneously to not kind of metagame them as the DM, to be like, oh, you told him this. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, okay. He didn't tell you guys. Okay, we're moving on. The thief's keeping secrets.
Keeping secrets, dirty secrets.
Right. And so there is a balance and there is kind of a finesse to it that I'm developing my own grace upon. But it is interesting that I'm trying to establish that more so.
Yeah.
So that there's less time lost and more focus applied to just kind of keeping a good pace going, keeping everybody involved.
Because anything that's not necessary just dilutes it, right? And so much.
It can. I don't think we can ever trim all the fat, though.
No, but you get better and better at it. Like you talk about, right? The more you do it,
Yeah.
the better you're like keeping. This is the good parts, and your players also have that sort of learning curve where they're like, "Oh, this is
That's a weird curve.
where they're like, this is worth the RP scene, right? This is worth the explore. That's not,
Yeah.
right? This is just RPing for the sake of RPing,
Right.
right?
And that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
That can happen.
Mm-hmm. Like no one cares about the conversation about what you thought about the pastrami sandwich you had in the morning, right? And how it was different from yesterday morning's pastrami sandwich. Oh, unless it matters.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
Challenge of the day: make your breakfast count for a whole day of like adventuring and like role play and whatnot. It's like, man, I'm so happy I could climb this fence because I had those eggs this morning.
Right? Where is that last one? I gotta find out where it went. And there's your adventure.
The missing egg.
So like, yeah, scenes.
Scenes.
Right? But you're like, okay, great, Sean. All the values in the scenes, right? Like, so then what? Right? I'm going to move on. I'm going to talk about how I think travel is like sales.
So you're scening yourself now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? In scene, new scene. Travel is like sales. For all of you guys who may not work in sales or have worked in sales, sales is all about the value add. Right? Like, why should anyone care about this thing that you're selling? Right? And a scene is similar. Why should any of the PCs or the other PCs or the DM care about this scene, right, that we have within our travel? Because we said travel's not a thing. It's all about a series of scenes.
I mostly agree with you.
Right? Right? Why shouldn't we skip this travel? Why should we have something between this city and that city?
Yeah.
Right? If there is no value, just skip it. Right? If I want to add something between there, if there's going to be a random combat encounter, why do I care about that random combat encounter? Right? It's about the value that scene adds. Right? So every scene that we add there needs to have some value to the table.
Okay.
Or it's better not to do it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So when you're initiating quote unquote travel, you need to ask yourself, again, those two questions.
All right.
Okay. What is the value that this is going to add to the player experience?
Yep.
Okay. And is this value essential to the table's goals? The people, not the characters. The people playing at the table.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because again, the characters do the actual travel. Right? The people at the table don't want to necessarily.
Yes. So as long as Jonathan is paying attention, Harvac, the destroyer of the three crowns, will also continue to be.
Yes.
Yes.
Like Harvac talks about his pastrami sandwich every morning. We all know that.
Harvac, destroyer of the three crowns.
Sorry. Three crown pastrami sandwich. Right? Like
On that day, we found out that Harvac's a cannibal.
After you do 5 minutes of talking about pastrami sandwiches every morning, the table just doesn't care anymore. We get it. So let's skip it. Right? But for the characters, they get to hear that every morning.
Right. Unless you've also established like build your own pastrami sandwich bar next to the table.
Right.
And then Harvath can RP all
day, every day.
Baby.
Right. Is this value essential to the table's goals? And when you think about it, they're not particularly easy questions to answer. Right? Like, what is the value that I'm adding to the player experience? Is it essential? Because a lot of things aren't going to add value. Right? And if they are, is it enough? Right? Is it essential to have it? Like a good play? Because if it's not essential, get rid of it. It's what I say. So it's important that you can be sure that you can answer these questions so you're sure that you aren't wasting any session time. Because as we say, your session time is so valuable. You don't want to be wasting any of those minutes or hours that you get to be together, whether online or live. Right? But do you know what your table's goals are? Right? If not, again, session 0, watch our episode if you haven't yet. Or if you're past session 0, just have another sort of session 0 plus, just to find out and clarify what is essential. What does your table value when it comes to scenes or things in your campaign, right? Is it killing stuff and getting loot, right? Is it deep emotional role play? Is it just doing cool epic stuff? Exploring a certain idea, solving mysteries, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right? And have a list, and everything you do should hit one of those sort of values.
Well, and it should be in that trajectory that's
Yes.
been decided by the whole table.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And nothing should go out of that unless you're trying something new.
Oh.
Right? Or you're setting up something else that makes it better. Or something.
Once again, mostly agree.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you're blending in a dash and a pinch of some other stuff to kind of
Spice it
perhaps
up.
broaden people's experience, not a problem.
Yeah, like I said, testing it. Do we like this? Maybe this might be fun.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I've only done dungeon crawler games. I've never actually talked to another player.
Right. You're talking to the guards?
What?
You can do that.
They've only got 6 hit points.
but that's the value, right?
Yes.
The value is finding out if this activity has value to us.
Right. Right.
And so once you understand your table's goals, then you can start thinking about how to meet those goals. Right. And then again, travel is a great way of another way of sort of meeting those goals. Because travel is exactly like any other D&D activity, right? It needs to further your goals. Any activity that doesn't further your goals, don't do it. Just skip it. Right? Does this combat value my goal? No. Does RP scene further my goals? No. Skip it. Does my table care about resource management? No. Don't do it.
They do care about the gold. That's a resource.
Right. Or maybe they don't. They just want to get cool stuff.
Fair.
Right? They want to work for it. That's most tables. Dirty PC secrets right there. So I think it can help, though, to frame your answers in the 3 great pillars of D&D.
Oh.
Right? Again, that's
if you listen to Caffeine. Right?
Combat, role play, and exploration.
Right.
Right. But even then, I would say like RP for the sake of RP, no one cares. Combat for the sake of combat, no one cares. Exploration for the sake of exploration, no one cares.
Right. And that harkens back to when I was saying like one pillar is lonely. If you are only doing one thing for itself, it is very monotonous and it's very boring. It lays flat. To just engage in conflict for conflict's sake, boring. Just engage in roleplay for roleplay's sake, boring. And it's that layering of the 2 or 3 pillars of the game together that does make it more dynamic, does make it more interesting, but it's way harder.
Well, yes and no, because you've got that list of things that your table values now, right? Like, oh, we really love solving mysteries. So then you just add one of those pillars. Does this combat help us solve a mystery? Yes. Oh, cool. Let's do it. Does it not? Let's not do it. Does this exploration help with deep emotional roleplay? Yes. Let's do it.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Does this role-playing help me kill stuff and get loot? Yes. Awesome. I don't even need to do combat roll dice. I can just kill them with RP. Awesome. Right? Then do it. Do lots of it. So yeah, that's what I wanted to sort of put out there into your brain to help you when you're building your own travel experience. Like it's great. You want to do any of your activities that you do now in your travel can be great.
Candy Crush?
Yeah. If it helps you kill stuff and get loot. Right? And your table cares about it.
I mean, they generally discourage that on transit.
Keeping track of rations help with doing cool epic shit? Yes? Then go ahead. Right? It's looping back to those values of your tables and the scenes within there. So, yeah. Hopefully that gives you something to think about. So just a shift in your thought patterns to help you make your own travel already better.
It is one of the most important shifts I think that you could question in that particular space.
Yeah.
Right. And not why should we, but why shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Why shouldn't we, avoid this? Right. Why do we have to travel? Why do we have to have things that put context on that? Mm-hmm. It really, really digs into me. Like, why shouldn't I like and subscribe to Caffeine and Cantrips? If it's your first time here, welcome so much. Thanks for sticking around for like a good half an hour or so.
40 so minutes.
Hopefully you're liking it. Hopefully we've earned your subscription.
I'm loving it.
Call us.
Definitely call us.
Yeah. McD money. If we haven't earned your subscribe, well, try and check out another one, or we're going to work even harder to do that. So jump in, come check us out. Spotify, Google Play, Apple Music, everywhere, worldwide. Yeah. Not as worldwide as Pitbull, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting there. Anyway, it's a key thing that I think you just touched on is really in the major questions that we have to ask ourselves.
Okay.
And this is not just for DMs, remember. Players need to kind of prep their upcoming sessions as well, especially if it's a travel session. Because the question that you posed, or maybe you didn't pose, but you suggested, was how do we add value to this?
It's funny that you talk about sorry to interrupt, the players.
Sorry at all. Yeah.
Because it's the players that add value to a scene, right? All the DM can do is set the scene.
Well, the DM's a player too, so I suppose
the PCs that add the value to it, right? And it's the DM that adds sort of what kind of value it's going to be. Anyways.
I want to ponder that, but my brain's so full of other stuff.
No. Sorry.
It's no. It's an interesting thought experiment to fire off into the ether. As to like, but
it's like improv shows.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the major thing is that no one person is responsible for all of the value.
Yes.
Right.
Of course.
So as players, you need to bring your piece of the pie back to the tray, essentially, right? Potluck it. It's way better.
Potlatch.
So when we're trying to add value, when we're trying to add impact, when we're trying to add more, 2 scoops of more in every session.
2 scoops of value in every session.
We don't do jingles, folks. How do we make it better?
Cereal.
How do we get in there? How do we make it better? And I think you've already, by the way, congratulations. You've already made it better by considering it.
Yep.
Right?
Oh yeah.
You've put.
You're already a better person by watching this video, is what he's saying.
Not in so many words, but
the shoe fits.
By putting your attention on it, on that seed in your mind that maybe we just planted, it has started to grow.
Yes.
Right? And so congratulations, you already said yes to wanting to make it better, to wanting to add value to it. So, golf clap. He doesn't golf. It's really... Right, before I said it's the most important thing that you ignore, you stopped ignoring it because you started thinking about it. So that's really the first and most important participation trophy. That's the most important step, right? The choice of yes.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the first thing you need before you end.
First you yes, then you end. Right? And now we get into the search to make that yes into reality.
Okay. How do we do that?
So I would prepare to talk a lot. I would call this kind of bones, frames, and tripods.
Okay.
Because I'm all systems and like building and fleshing things out. So
flash frames. Anyways, okay. Nope. Sorry. Keep going.
Cool. Yeah. You keep going places. I think we have to, like I said before in developing, we have to start from what we know. So what do we know? speaking from the DM side of things,
Okay.
for this moment, we generally know how to create and balance an encounter.
Combat encounter.
No.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Oh, keep going.
Burn.
Show me.
First strike. An encounter. Just an encounter.
Okay. I like it.
Second, now balancing is combat. I might have thrown him off a bit.
See, jeez.
Second part of this is the
Don't
pillars.
look down on me.
All three of them.
Okay. All three of them.
All three of them. And the fourth one.
What's the fourth one?
Trust.
I always
shining
forget
jewel.
about that one.
That's our one. You shouldn't forget that.
I don't trust anyone, that's why.
Lastly, something that we all, I believe, know about, but some of us don't pay attention to, and that's okay. But that's the adventuring day as kind of described by the DMG.
Oh, PCs might not know about that. Players might not know about that.
No, which is why I'm talking from the DM perspective.
All right.
Scoped it out.
Ooh, scoping outside.
So when we're talking about this, I think there's ways that we can add engagement and we can add impact and value to our travel by perhaps setting it aside as a separate entity within the game. I know recently the Dungeon Dudes kind of did a thing about travel. And one of the things that they instigate in their games, which I love,
I don't know, recently,
is essentially the idea that the effort of traveling prevents characters from getting long rests. As long as you're traveling, your night of rest, where you have guards and everything and all that fun stuff, that counts as a short rest.
That's a homebrew rule.
Right? Because if you've ever hiked for a whole day, that actually takes effort. If you've ever ridden a horse for a whole day, that requires therapy.
Like you require more rest to be fully.
To take a long rest, you cannot spend the day traveling because traveling is an exertion in of itself.
Right, 8 hours is not long enough to recover from.
How many times do we say, oh man, I need a travel day because I'm flying to blah, blah, blah. Right? And it's like, oh, it's an 8-hour flight.
It's just jet lag.
It's going to bag me. Right?
Yeah.
Right? It happens, but it's not just that. It's the getting ready. It's the packing the stuff. It's taking it to the bus terminal or the airport. It's the lines. It's the tickets. Right?
Yeah.
It's the tiny little cups that they give you on the plane. And
it's that jerk walking up 5 rows to put his carry-on baggage above that one instead of anyways.
Yes. So there's all these things that we have to deal with in our own lives when we travel.
Flashbacks.
And this is the modern age of comfort.
Yeah.
So when we jump back, there's far more effort for far little payoff when you're talking about the distance a horse can travel in a day versus the distance a Ferrari can travel, right? So when they start talking about when we travel, it becomes short rests only, right? Now, I'm not saying that you have to do this.
Why do they do that?
Because it differentiates when they're going dungeon delving or when they're spending time in town, when they're kind of staying put and exploring an area versus physically traveling from A to B.
It changes the feeling.
It certainly does.
From the player experience.
Yeah, and I think I like it because it almost adds like this resource management without actually having to track anything. Right? Now you got to watch what spells you're casting. Now you got to watch what you're doing here.
Right. You're like, another combat encounter? Oh, gosh. I only have so many spell slots left, right?
Right. We can't just...
The Warlock's like, come on, guys.
Carpet bomb every merchant that comes by. Yeah, the Warlock's just like, yes.
The Fighter is like, whatever, short rest. It all comes back, guys.
Exactly. So take it or leave it, right, for these sorts of things. But in this instance, this is talking about differentiating the feel of travel and making it special.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And changing it so that it's more interesting. So with that kind of a concept, right, we go back to these questions that Sean was asking, right? So ask yourself when you're planning this out or when you're kind of thinking it out, what is it that you're trying to satisfy? Which goal of the group are you trying to kind of feed in this moment, right? What part of the game have you and your players found meaning in that you could do something with in this travel to make it essential that they experience this moment?
Yeah.
Right? What are the strengths that you can bring to the table and make value as a player? Right now, that's DMs and players as well. But what can you bring while you are, quote unquote, just traveling? What can you add to it? right? Do you bring your headphones, or do you bring your AirPods, or do you bring one of those neck pillow things, right?
Right. Do download like 4 episodes of Caffeine and Cantrips. Watch them on the way.
Oh, that would get you pretty far.
But depends on what episode. Some of them are pretty freaking long.
Yeah. So asking what strengths, remember these are skill things. So if it's organization, we can keep pace by the fighter's player, keeping us on time, keeping us moving forward, right? Acting like a fighter in encounters. A tree has fallen across the way. Well, I go out there and I hack it in half with my hatchet. Great. This is easy. Awesome. We're also going to take some of that for firewood, says the ranger, because that's their strength they built for survival and whatnot, right? Apply those things forward. But conceptually, what can I do to bring to the table to make it better for everybody? Right?
Okay. Yep.
Now, we're going to jump into that encounters part of this.
Okay.
So I'm going to go over and quickly-ish talk about like the 3 pillars and what we can do to engage with each of the 3 pillars. Okay. So first, I want to talk about conflict. Now, you called it combat. I like to call it conflict.
Yep. You open it up. Okay.
Because it just applies to a few more things. But one of the big rules, and this you should never do, and you alluded to this as well, you should never have combat for combat's sake.
Oh, yeah. It's
right?
annoying.
What are we doing? We're fighting more kobolds. Why are we fighting more kobolds? Well, because as the DM, I know I need to grind a few more spells out of you before you fight the big bad guy. Just give him a few more hit points.
Unless, I don't know how many of you guys out there do this, but unless you do combat XP. Right. Even then, I don't know.
Well, we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
I know there's like Brennan and Matt Mercer talked about it. And I
kill 50 kobolds, so I'm just better at magic. I just learned a bunch of spells.
Yeah. The first level wizard school just takes their students out of the forest to firebolt everything.
I read their strewn intestines for inspiration for new spells. Like, what?
Oof. That is a fair point. That's not combat for combat's sake.
Yeah.
That's combat to like pad the XP so that they can hit their level ups as you want them to or whatever.
Still, I don't know.
But combat
not a fan of that.
Combat isn't good without meaning, right? Even in combat, you should have roleplay.
It makes it so much more cool.
In combat, you can have exploration, and that's a fun one to think about. But we can find out more about ourselves. We can find out more about the other people. That is exploration in a sense.
Yep.
Right?
Exploring an idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just like, however, in travel, where combat for combat's sake is bad, I also think random encounters are random trash. Because at their very core and essence, unless you're using that to kind of create ideas and create inspiration for parts of the story that you're going to tell, it really, like, if you're at the table as the DM and you're like, I don't know what's going to happen, roll, 1d4 trolls. If you can make a story off of that and add to what's going on, remember to make it essential.
Yeah.
Then awesome. That is one of the strengths that you bring to this.
Yeah.
But if you can't, don't.
Yeah.
Get the random encounters out. Look ahead at what lives in the kingdom, what lives in the area, what lives in the city, what lives in the sewers, what lives in the swamp. Wherever your characters are going from A to B across, look at that and add something in yourself. Now, this is where it can get actually really fun. This is where you can take the path less traveled.
Okay.
Puns. Right? This is where you can be creative. This is where you can be bold. This is where you can try something new. So Monster of the Week comes out and you're like, oh my God, I would love to have one of those in my campaign. Travel is a great way to do that. You can insert an independent object in there, find the meaning, bundle it up like that, and send it in. Oh, you want to introduce characters to spellcasters for the first time. Oh, really fun. Okay, great. Try it. Be bold. Be creative. You can have wider brushstrokes in this space because you are less defined by your narrative, but you're not immune to including the narrative in what it is that you're doing.
Okay.
And I think that that's important. You can still have fun, right? But you got to still bake the cake before you eat it.
Right.
Right. And it's got to match with what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my poke at combat and conflict.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm going to talk about conflict a little bit more here because unless you wanted something to add.
No, I want to hear to the end of this.
Exploration. Exploration isn't just one foot in front of the other. Okay. We talked about this way back in episode 18, having epic feeling to your campaign.
How do you know the numbers of our episodes? You're so good at that.
It's all in here. All the voices.
I don't even know what we did last week.
Well, we were on break. So, or maybe we weren't. No, we weren't on break.
No.
We did a lot of good work last week.
Just slacking off.
Anyway, exploration, like I alluded to before, allows you to explore anything.
Okay.
Right? Exploration is literally the title, and you can explore ideas. You can explore geographical places. You can explore backstories. You can explore front stories. You can explore anything. What's a front story? Yeah.
It's the one that comes after the backstory.
Yeah, it's the one that you're doing right now.
Right now.
And we can explore these. You can explore anything, right? And so when we're looking at exploration, this is where we can go back to our skills and we can really start to pick apart what parts of your story have you not gotten to. You need some more hooks to introduce that guy because the PCs keep missing all the hints that you're. Throw a few more in there. I'm not bitter. I'm not. Who said I was bitter?
They don't do that. That's why. They don't miss hints.
Perhaps it's a storyline that you keep wanting to try and interject and kind of get in there, but you haven't found a moment of peace or grace to do that. Now that they're traveling, now you can do that.
Yes.
Figure out a storyline or a hook that will lead them into it. Throw it at them. Right?
Yep.
Where are you narratively weak or combat weak? What are the weak points that you're trying to address? Maybe the group hasn't learned to fight as a cohesive unit. Maybe they've never fought ranged, enemies. Maybe they haven't fought. So now we're exploring tactics. Now we're exploring mechanics. Now we're exploring different things like we just talked about, right? In conflict, not just combat. I could set you up with a group of rather errant merchants that possess no combat capability, right? So how does the group deal with like level 1-ish, level 0 NPCs, regular peasants that want to fight? And they're good. They're really good. So now we're going to explore conflict resolution. Now we're going to explore, the fighter took a 16 in charisma. Now he gets to use it, right? Maybe he took an 8 in charisma. Now he gets to use it, right? So we get in there and really kind of poke out and flesh out where are we weak, right? What has been underdeveloped? Which PC has been hiding in the shadows instead of coming out into the spotlight and needs a break, right? That would be like a weak point, I would say. Okay. Right? Where we can really tailor what's going on.
We don't call them weak points. We call them opportunities to improve.
Yeah.
HR speak for you guys.
Yeah. Her speak. Yeah. And that's great. That's once again a paradigm shift in how you're looking at it.
Yeah.
But this is something that you want to develop. That cake hasn't risen yet. Let's give it some more time. Let's give it some more effort, right?
Yeast is dead.
The yeast.
You more them yeast.
Right. And when we talk about these opportunities for improvement, this is really where we get to look and see where could we use some additional orthogonal development. Where can I start?
Sideways development for you guys who haven't watched the other episodes.
More depth to anything.
Yeah.
Right. Where can we do that? Where can I say
girth?
Yeah. All 3 dimensions. Yeah. Three-way. So where can we find that additional depth? What backstory element have I not engaged in that I've really been wanting to, sink my teeth into? When am I ready to make a transitional point between arc A and arc B of a single character? Right? These are things that we can look at to add depth, add meaning, add impact. Make sure that road isn't just a dusty old road that we're going to skip because it's boring. Make that a sad, sad road that, somebody's mother once traveled And this is bringing the child closer to the parent, and that's all the child has wanted to do.
Was to walk this road.
They didn't know it was this road. They just know that their parents left, and now they're chasing them down. Right? So now this road actually has me. They're chasing them down. Yeah, sure.
Don't you dare leave me.
I want my milk. I'm
gonna get you.
It's really important that we
the baby's here.
We could really get in there and add depth, add impact, add meaning to the story, to places that really feel like if you didn't know, then it wouldn't exist. But now that you do know, you can't shake it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we need to make sure that as we explore, we don't have exposition for its own sake, right? Much like combat, much like exploration, much like roleplay. We need to tell the story, and we can tell the story. So like, for instance, a great classic, Princess Mononoke.
Oh.
Right? We have our friendly hero riding his red elk, and he comes across, he's not in combat. He comes across a group of Lord Adama's men attacking a village.
Yes.
Right? And there are samurai attacking innocent villagers. And at first he's like, not my monkeys, not my circus.
Hold up.
Right? But then we're going to show you how brutal the world is. Right? Because those samurai are like, you're in the way. We're going to fight you. Why? Because we're supposed to come here and fight everybody.
Yeah.
So now we're going to show you, this is the enemy that later I can't remember her name now.
I don't know.
The leader of the Iron Town, right? This is the enemy that she's trying to defend against. We're showing you how brutal he is so that she is more sympathetic later, right? So that she is not a villain necessarily. She might be an antagonist, but in her own right, she's a hero, right? And we're starting that foreshadowing. We're starting those hooks early. Yeah, it's been a while. But when we're looking at this, if you just watch it and you skip through it, you can skip through it. Oh, I didn't want to fight. I saw a fight, but then I was dragged into the fight, and then I did some fighting, but that fighting was bad. I got to explore my story because the hate made the curse on his arm grow.
Yes.
Right? All of the pillars, guys, all of the pillars in one scene where he was just traveling.
Yep. It wasn't doing anything.
No.
Yeah.
No, but it happened.
Yes.
Right. And so that's why I kind of want to say that road, that place, that thing, you can have your PCs come upon, sure, an overturned cart being attacked by bandits, goblin footsteps around a burnt out caravan, whatever it is. You can have that, and you can tell a story through still life, or you can tell the story through a picture that they see. Something is happening. This is an encounter. Not a combat encounter.
Right.
This is an encounter where we see the truth of the world around us.
Right. Right.
And now we have something to believe in. We have more nuance to sink into.
It's like a point of value.
The world is more real.
Yeah.
Right. And then you can go, oh, blah, 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 blah. I was on the road and attacked it. And the PCs go, oh, we saw that. That was brutal. How did you escape with your life? Right. And now you go, oh, the PCs now are more in the world than they were before they just walked by.
Right.
Right. So coming across an old battlefield, coming across a ruin, coming across an ancient elder tree that's, worshipped by the local Fae and Elven community, whatever it is, tell some of the story through that still life. Explore the world lore, dig into the culture. These are all ways that, you can go, hey guys, what's your passive investigation? Passive perception? I'm going to use that on a non-combat encounter. I'm just going to tell you more. What's your passive history? Great. This.
Right. You got to be careful though. Even with those lore dumps and stuff like that in the expositions, it has to affect the players somehow later on.
Well, that's why it's there, guys. You've picked where you want to develop, what you want to add to.
Yeah.
That's why it's there.
Yeah.
Or that's why the information that you're giving out is twisted in a way that it applies to what is important to them as well as what is important just to itself.
Yeah.
Why it's unique, why it's special.
Yeah. Lore for the sake of lore again.
Not because that's just exposition.
Yeah.
Right. So we do want to have that bag of tricks, right? To make sure that we've got all the right stuff in front of them to keep it interesting and fun. But ultimately it loops back onto the story that we are trying to tell and the story that they are trying to tell.
Yes. Okay.
Whew, exploration got a big two scoops there. But I think once again, exploration's kind of the most neglected of the three. But it's really powerful.
Yes.
We start looking at what exploration can do and how we can apply it. Lastly, the third pillar of the pillars of the tripod.
Trust.
Roleplay. So close every time. So close. Roleplay, obviously, you know what roleplay is. That's why you're here. Because you're looking at getting better games, getting more impactful, interesting things happening at the table. Roleplay, I think, and in this case, I'm going to call this roleplay an inspiration.
Oh.
I really think, because I am a DM that likes to throw a lot at my players.
You sure do.
I like to give and give
and give.
And in travel, I find that generally that is a pause. That is where the PCs can take a moment and have a now finite amount of lore that they can actually allow to soak in, and they can deal with it. They can reflect on it. They can kind of work with all of the Harmon wheels that you've just put them through in that last town, and all of the storyboarding that you've pushed around and made interesting and impactful. And now they can take some time to just absorb and be at peace and reflect. Because you're on the wheel, guys. You're either on the front half of the wheel or maybe you're on the back half of the wheel. Maybe you just did some sacrificing.
That's what the cultist said.
That's it. Maybe.
The cultist will.
Or maybe you lost and now you're traveling away from, a lost battlefield, a lost fort, a lost town, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Now we're dealing with grief. Now we're dealing with whatever it is that the PCs are dealing with. They can now reflect. They can now represent themselves in RP just to the party. We don't have to worry about NPCs overhearing or, sneak thieves, out in the bushes, kind of stealing that information. The party can just be an entity unto themselves and either insulate themselves or cause that friction. But they can do what they want to do.
Yeah.
They can do what they want to do.
Good old friction between friends.
Another thing that I think is really important, that's a new rule at my table.
Oh, yes.
Is a point of inspiration.
You added that to your table?
Yes.
Nice.
So now I have individuals, if you call for a scene. So we found that it's really difficult in roleplay, in exploration, in travel, in combat, or whatever, for someone to judge what was exemplary or what was the rule of cool to say, hey, you deserve a DM inspiration for this, or a point of inspiration, whatever you're using at your table. I now have said, hey guys, if you call for a scene, whether I'm an NPC that's involved in your scene or your scene is just between the PCs and I'm out and I just get to watch.
Right.
This is a moment that you're saying, witness me.
Witness
I am the DM now. Not quite, right?
Like,
but this is
let me show you something.
Shiny and chrome.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something.
So this is a moment to just say, hey, I'm going to do something because this is important to me.
Yes.
I think this is essential.
Yep.
I have to do this. Check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And as a DM, because I'm juggling cats and chainsaws and all of these sorts of things simultaneously, if somebody goes like knock, 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 hey, pay attention to me, that reminds me to pay attention to them and to shake all the other stuff out of the forebrain so that I can pay attention in that moment. And that individual, the person who calls for a scene, I am now watching them to see what they do, that cool thing that they brought, that development, that orthogonal development, that weak point, that opportunity for growth.
Yes.
Whatever it is that they're doing, I'm watching them and going, that was cool. You definitely earned that inspiration point, right?
Right.
Or I'm not sure what you were trying to do about that, But since I was watching you, maybe I can send you a text a little later.
Mhm.
Hey man, what question were you trying to answer? Or what were you trying to get out of that?
Right.
Because I didn't necessarily feel the same impact. I know you did. You started crying. But what were you trying to do? Because it was super interesting to me, right? It opens up so many different things.
Your crying was so interesting to me. It's fascinating. I don't know why. I don't really care.
Emotional engagement. Yeah.
But it was interesting.
Yeah. By the way, there'll be 54 cents for the tissues. No, don't do that. But
Bad DM, bad.
when we're adding value, right? When we're asking ourselves what is essential, 100% that is
100.
PCs calling for scenes,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
The trick is I don't allow them to call for like 100 scenes back to back so that everybody has 300 epiphanies simultaneously.
Yes.
I limit them to like 2 or 3 scenes a day. That's it.
I would do 2 at the most.
Whatever. 1 during the day, 2 the night. I don't know. I don't want to necessarily limit it, but I don't necessarily want it to run away. Find your own kind of Goldilocks.
As a player who has tried to be proactive in calling for scenes, I find that it's one substantial scene where I have something I want to accomplish is a lot for one session, like to prepare for even. So to have more than that, unless you're like a rock star, is difficult. So even if you said 1 a day, I don't think it's too little.
Find your own comfort. I said 3 because I didn't want anybody to be necessarily excluded. So at the table,
I feel 1 per player.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because you said I was like 3 per player. That's a lot.
No, three total for the whole group.
Yes. I agree with that.
Yeah, because one person can kind of do something, but then maybe they don't include the other PCs.
Yeah.
Right?
2 to 3. 1 per player, I would say.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yep.
See how it works at your table. But it is a time to remind yourself that, there are extra boons and benefits that I can have. There's extra moments where I can pay exclusive attention to you to see what your wants are. We don't need another session 0 if your character gives me a Hamlet soliloquy, right? I know what your character's feeling. I know what your character desires. I know what to put on your wheel.
Right.
So that's a great way of informing what we're going to explore next, what we're going to have conflict with next, where we're going to travel to next, is having these scenes showing the emotion, showing the vulnerability, shout out antiheroes, showing all of these things, because that will add essential value.
Okay. I love it. Love it.
So that's building your framework. That's building your tripod, right? That's fleshing out what you're doing to add value. I think since I was talking about starting from the strengths of what you know, perhaps, and this has been said elsewhere and I really like it, changed the way that I started thinking about things, but making a travel dungeon.
This is a weird idea.
Yeah, I know you find it weird.
Yeah.
I know you find it weird. I think conceptually it's still a strong idea.
No, I know. Okay, go for it.
So I think if you think of
I think it's a good idea. It's weird in my brain.
Yeah. You'll get it,
guys.
guys. You'll get it.
Typically, it's weird in my brain anyways.
If you plan your travel like you would make a dungeon. So once again, this is in forethought. This is in your prep. Okay. Plan your travel like you would make a dungeon. You create 6 to 8, maybe only 5. Maybe you do the 5-room dungeon thing. Then you create 5 encounters that are going to happen on that travel. Whether or not they're only short resting or they're getting full long rests, you know how to balance. CR. You know how to kind of make it fun for the PCs, right? So pick a theme, right? Dungeons have themes. This travel is going to have a theme. That theme is finding out about the Goblin King. Okay, cool. The Goblin King is super cool, dude. As long as you're a goblin.
Goblin.
Right?
Disco.
Make sure when you're planning your scope for this, right, that you have a rich environment and you will have colorful characters for them to engage with.
Okay, yep.
Right? Just like a dungeon where we have to describe, the stagnant water dripping or being dripped upon by the stalactites
Yep.
That would make it not stagnant. But right, and we talk about the firelight glistening off of the wet walls and blah blah blah, and the smells of the mushrooms and the fungus, and we cover all the senses. We do that. We should do the same in travel, right? We should have those locations in travel. You come across a cutout on the side of the road. Well, why is this cutout essential to be here? Why is it interesting that I'm introducing this to the PCs?
Right.
Right. Tell your story across these. Now, whether you're treating it like we said before, and if it's going to be like a travel adventure day, right? And you're going to have 6 to 8 medium to hard encounters, or you're going to do your 5-room dungeon, your 3-room dungeon, your only turn right maze, whatever it's going to be, right? Tell the story of your theme across this.
Yes.
Right? Make sure that what you're trying to tell, the story that you're trying to tell in this moment, in this scope, is being told. Right?
Yes.
And if you don't want to conform to any of these rules and you kind of want to do your own thing, I don't know if you're really making a travel dungeon, but you do you. Right? Like this is talking about bringing your own strengths in a way to just shift the thinking on how we make this so that we're not dealing with, like you said before, travel is something that we can't really define, can't really see.
Right.
Now I can see a framework. I can treat it like a dungeon. It's just an open air dungeon now with its set pieces, right? Sprinkle all those encounters, combat encounters, non-combat encounters, puzzles, traps. You could do skill challenges, but skill challenges are kind of wonky. Maybe put a skill challenge in a conflict. Right. The goal is not to fight the goblins. The goal is to repair the bridge.
Or a skill challenge before the conflict.
Yes.
That changes how the conflict starts.
Right.
Or whatever.
Right. Do you take the low path or do you take the shorter high path? Oh, you take the high path. Now there's boulders that you can drop down on the giants or whatever.
Right.
Right. Give them more ammunition to throw at you. Whatever it is. Absolutely. Right. But make them tie into each other. Make one essentially attached to the next essential.
That's a great point.
Moment. Yeah. Right? Because you are creating a cohesive block.
Yeah.
Now, we just sprinkle these across the entire distance traveled.
Yes. Travel bay.
Right? This gets tough if we're in the second or third version of travel that you kind of put forth. If we're not traveling from city to dungeon in the mountains or city to faraway place, we're just traveling city to city. Man, 6 to 8 combat encounters in your city. I want to know what's going on in your city.
Like within the city?
Like every block is a fight.
It can happen, right? It's just a civil war. Or it's a huge, there's 2 huge thief guilds and they're just fighting and it's all out.
They just so happen to come in when, it's gangland. Right? Sure.
Or whatever, right?
Sure. I think that's the Dragon Crown or that's the Tiamat storyline that opens up that you were just instantly into a town on fire.
Yep. It's a great opening.
Okay, cool. It gets you right into the action, sure. But too much can be too much. Make it believable to the theme.
As long as it has value.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Just be aware that they were running 2 blocks. That shouldn't take you 5 sessions to get through.
Right.
Time management still important.
Yes.
Right. And make a little Harmon wheel or whatever for that little dungeon. Just like you would do for all the rest. See where you can create a moment of sacrifice, a moral quandary. See where you can find that combat that will challenge them. See where you can make destructible environments. They don't have to go down the road because everything's on fire. The walls are weakened. So now they can cut through some of the houses, right? Feel free to be creative.
Destructible environments. Explore. What? The kind of computer processing that requires.
I said fireball.
Oh, what?
And really, when you get kind of down to this, once you've created that, hey, great, awesome. If that helped you, I'm so happy. If it didn't help you, well, at least we checked it off the books. Stroke it off. Don't have to worry about it.
Stroke it off.
Yes.
Okay. Check it off. I mean, different strokes for different folks.
There we go. Ultimately, what we're trying to do when we're trying to add essential value is we're encouraging the players to do what they want because what they want to do is have fun.
Mm.
So we're providing a leadership role for them to follow if they don't understand what's happening, or for your veteran players or for your players that already have a strong background in this. This provides them a stage or a kind of spring block to jump off of, right? And say, do you think it's essential? Okay, then I want it.
Right.
Bring it out. Show us.
Mm-hmm.
Is it not essential? Okay. Maybe sit on it. Maybe bring it out anyway. See what happens.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But there's something there, and they can follow that.
Mm-hmm.
And they understand those mechanics are already built into the game itself.
Love it.
So
love it. No, I like that idea that your travel, because we typically design or experience travel as sort of multiple discrete happenings. Like, oh, here's the common encounter during the day. Oh, here's the camp. And then here's nothing happens. Next day, oh, roll some dice to see what kind of weather it is. Right? Right.
Damn your druid craft.
Next, that evening, camp, evening, watch, evening, fight.
Yes.
And they're unrelated.
Yes.
Right. So if you think of it as one whole sort of act, that each piece builds into something, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's great because you can't have act 1 and then act 3 without act 2, right? Like it's great to connect those acts together.
That's the DLC. You got to pay extra for those seats.
Right?
Yeah. No, I agree. And so that's why I think I wanted to frame the end of the conversation that way, because that's how I would add value. That's how I would decide whether it's essential or not, is I would start fleshing it out and I'd be like, this bread ain't going to rise. This dog ain't going to hunt.
Right.
Whatever it's going to be.
That is the key, though, to make sure that whatever's happening in travel has something to do with things that happened in the last location and the things that are going to happen in the location you're going to. Right?
Yes.
Has to be the connection.
And whether
everything needs to connect.
Yeah. Whether it's a mini adventure. Maybe you're someone like me who likes to plan long campaigns, but you find one shots very difficult. Make your travel a one shot. You have one session to get them from A to B, and they got to go through 5 encounters.
Well, it's like in a movie, it's like a great montage.
Yeah.
Right? It tells a story. Every single cut tells you something, and there is no cut that is useless. Each single second, each single scene in there builds and tells you a story. Like it's the Rambo putting on his weapons, and like you know exactly now after this how he's equipped and how ready he is to go off and fight. Right. That was the point of that travel sequence. Right. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I like it. All right.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us. I think that's probably a good point to stop traveling.
Stop.
That's in of itself. I think that there's a lot of skill building and a lot of practice that we can do. And that's how we do it. So you start building in something, you don't find it essential, you don't throw it away, right? You set it aside. It didn't hit the mark. We'll start again. And eventually you'll find that they hit the mark, or you'll figure out why A didn't work, but D, E, and F did. You go back and revamp A, and now it worked.
Yeah.
Right? Never throw anything away, right? Always just kind of throw it in the bag and work on it as you can. And then you, my friends, as DMs, players all, will have more fun. And that's really what it's about.
Yeah.
So
we love it. We have more fun when you have more fun. Right? But let us know. Are we out to lunch? Of course we're not. But if we are, leave a comment. Let us know what you think of it. I'm interested in knowing if you are like, you're full of crap. I don't agree at all. Wonderful. I know. I probably am full of crap. That's the way we like it here at Caffeine and Cantrips.
Yes. Well, I was Byron.
And I am Sean.
And we will travel along and catch you next time.
Or
else. I'm a plane. We're traveling.
Yeah. Oh man, if I could skip traveling on the plane, skip the good stuff.
That's why teleportation is such like a gimme kind of power, like an S tier power.
Is that an S tier power?
I think so. Definitely in quality of life upgrades.
Yeah, there's so many stupid powers out there.
Yes, teleportation is not one of them.
I mean, the best one is the power to move you.
Down. That's the wrong song. Kyle!
Kyle!
He left the band.